Hello, today we're taking a look together at Bach Cantata number 1. And the first thing to say about Bach Cantata 1 is it's not his first cantata. It was the first. The cantatas are numbered in the order in which the Bach Gesellschaft began publishing them in 1851. And when those scholars met together to begin to publish the complete works of Bach, they asked themselves this collective question. Of all of his roughly 300 cantatas, of which 100 or so are lost, we have about 200 left, which one do we think just might be the most interesting, the most colorful, have the most variety within the orchestra, and be the most compelling for the audience? And the answer they came up with is the cantata we're looking at right now, How Brightly Shines the Morning Star, Wie schön leuchtet der Morgenstern. Bach wrote this piece for the Feast of the Annunciation in the year 1725. And there's an interesting little fact about that too. The Feast of the Annunciation was a particularly important feast in the Lutheran churches. Of course, it's 9 months before the birth of Jesus, so it falls on March 25th. And the thing is that usually March 25th came during the season of Lent. And the churches had a policy that in Lent there would be no music allowed. So though it was an important feast that one would have presumed Bach would have written a lot of music for, he actually only wrote 2 cantatas for the Feast of the Annunciation, this one and another one in 1736. This one is a chorale-based cantata, and we'll talk about what that means in just a minute. But first, let's just look at how the piece begins. I think it's really interesting. If you think of the Annunciation, you think of the angel visiting Mary and announcing that Jesus was going to be born. But this piece starts off actually with the worship of the new baby. So it envisions the birth of Jesus and the journey of the 3 kings. There are 3 elements in the opening material which I find just delightful. The first is we have a little solo oboe that plays just a little kind of dance-like figure that has a sense of joy. Above it, we have the darker and more regal color of the horns and the oboes, representing royalty, I think. And so the royal kings are coming to visit. We have this, which kind of gets a sense of loping like camels within the context of being celebratory. It's a terrific choice. And then who are they coming to worship? They're coming to worship the baby Jesus, who's the Lord. So below it all, the foundation of it, Bach writes this. You heard the predominant figure in that was, and those are octaves. And in Bach's highly developed world of musical language, the octave is of course, it's the first overtone in the overtone series. In Bach's mind, it's the most perfect interval. Therefore, it represents the most perfect thing in all of the universe, which is God. So we have God underneath the foundation of it all, the celebratory loping camels, the depiction of the royalty, and finally, one more element. We have the first violins with this celebratory this exuberant kind of sparkling sound, perhaps representing the morning star sparkling up above. So the highest instrument in the orchestra sparkles over top of God, the camels, and the kings. What a remarkable achievement. That all took place in 2 measures. And that music will continue and permeate the entire first movement, which is rather extensive. Now, I said this was the Chorale Cantata, and what that simply means that the piece is based on a hymn, what we today would call a hymn, what Bach's day they called a chorale. And that chorale is How Brightly Shines the Morning Star. It's in many, many hymnals today. The Lutheran, the Catholic, the Presbyterian, the Methodist, the Baptist, I think they all have this lovely hymn. So on those materials, Bach builds this entire piece. Now, the other thing that I find interesting, I'd like to show you, is the text is for the day in Bach's church was Isaiah chapter 7, beginning with verse 10, and which reads like this: "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign." And it goes on to say, "Behold, a virgin shall conceive, and his name will be Emmanuel." So what is the sign of Jesus in churches? It's a cross. And if you look at this opening score, you see a single line, a big column of notes, and another single line. The score itself opens with the sign of the cross. So the sign, which is the star and the king's coming, is also replicated by Bach musically with the sign of the cross in the music. Again, I just love this stuff. It's so astonishingly successful.